They say poison works slowly. And I suppose that's true in more ways than one. The arsenic they slipped into my evening tea might have taken months to kill me, but the poison of their betrayal nearly destroyed me in a single night. My name is Margaret, and at 73 years old, I learned that sometimes the people you love most are the ones planning your funeral while you're still breathing. For 45 years, I lived in the same Victorian house on Maple Street. My husband Thomas passed 7 years ago, leaving me with a comfortable inheritance and what I thought was a loving family. My daughter Linda lived 3 blocks away with her husband Marcus and teenage son Jake. She visited twice weekly with warm smiles and updates about her real estate business. My son David called every Sunday from California without fail. The first warning should have been when Linda started managing my finances 6 months ago. She said it would be easier, that she could handle bills while I enjoyed retirement. I was grateful, especially as arthritis made writing checks difficult. She set up online banking and showed me neat spreadsheets, proving how well she managed everything. David suggested updating my will during a Sunday call, recommending a lawyer who specialized in estate planning for elderly clients. What I didn't realize was how systematically they were positioning themselves to benefit from my death. Linda had been transferring money into accounts she controlled. David convinced me to add him as a life insurance beneficiary, doubling the payout. The poisoning started so gradually, I attributed symptoms to normal aging. I became tired, dizzy, with frequent stomach upset. My doctor found nothing conclusive. Age-related decline, he said. Linda was wonderfully supportive during medical visits, taking detailed notes and researching supplements that might help my energy levels. Those supplements contained just enough arsenic to make me sick without raising suspicions. Linda had found the perfect dosage to mimic natural health decline, while slowly poisoning my system. The plan was elegant in its cruelty. I would gradually become dependent, eventually succumb to apparent natural causes, and they would inherit everything while appearing to be grieving, devoted children. The truth unraveled on a Tuesday evening in October. Linda brought my usual herbal tea, the special blend she claimed helped digestion. As she handed me the cup, her phone rang, and she stepped onto the porch. I could hear her voice through the open window, and what I heard changed everything. She was talking to David, believing I couldn't hear. She updated him on my condition, discussed how much longer the process might take, expressing frustration that I was proving more resilient than expected. The words that will haunt me forever were when she said, "We might need to increase the dosage. She's taking forever to decline. And Marcus is getting impatient about the house sale." I sat frozen, the teacup trembling as the full scope of their betrayal crashed over me. My own children were slowly poisoning me, planning to sell my home, counting my money while I was still alive. The supplements, tea, even meals Linda brought, all carefully calculated to end my life while maintaining their loving facade. The next morning, I woke with clarity I hadn't felt in months. The fog clouding my thinking was gone, replaced by sharp, cold determination. I dumped the remaining tea and threw away all supplements Linda provided. For the first time in weeks, I made my own breakfast and felt my appetite return. I researched arsenic poisoning symptoms. Everything matched perfectly. The gradual onset, digestive issues, overwhelming fatigue. Hair samples could reveal arsenic exposure going back months. A private lab ran tests without involving my regular doctor, who I suspected might have been influenced by Linda's convincing portrayal of a caring daughter. The results confirmed significant arsenic levels, consistent with chronic low-dose poisoning over 6 months. I had evidence, but more importantly, motivation to reclaim my life. I secretly consulted a different lawyer. Linda had been moving my money around, forging my signature on documents, including a power of attorney. Most shocking, they had already put my house on the market through private listing, telling the realtor I was moving to assisted living. They scheduled showings during my naps or medical appointments. Meanwhile, I continued the charade of being their slowly dying mother. The hardest part was managing emotions during interactions. Looking into Linda's eyes as she handed me poisoned food, listening to David's fake concern while he calculated inheritance timelines. The betrayal cut deeper than any physical pain. I had to be strategic about apparent recovery. If I suddenly seemed healthy, they might panic and accelerate their timeline. Instead, I gradually reduced consumption of anything they provided while maintaining the appearance of stable decline. The financial investigation revealed the full extent. Linda had moved nearly $200,000 into investments she controlled. She had taken out a reverse mortgage without my knowledge, funneling money into her real estate business, essentially stealing my home equity while I still lived there. 3 weeks after discovering the truth, I was ready to act. I had documented everything, secured legal representation, and detoxified my system enough to think clearly. On a Friday morning, I called Linda, asking her for lunch. I told her I felt particularly weak and wanted to discuss important matters while still clear-headed. She arrived with usual caring demeanor and homemade soup that surely contained another arsenic dose. While she heated soup in my kitchen, Detective Martinez and my new lawyer, Mr. Chen, were hidden in my study with recording devices. I had provided them all evidence, including lab results, financial documents, and recorded phone calls. When Linda brought soup, I thanked her warmly and pretended to eat while discreetly disposing spoonfuls into a napkin. She watched carefully for signs of how the latest dose might affect me. Detective Martinez recorded everything, and the soup would later test positive for arsenic. I guided conversation toward my health and future plans. She performed beautifully, expressing concern about my declining condition, while probing about my will and medical directives. She suggested moving to a care facility since managing the house was becoming too much. The conversation I'll never forget was when she said with perfect loving inflection, "Mom, I know this is hard, but we need to face reality. You're not getting better, and David and I just want what's best for you. We've found a wonderful facility where you'll be comfortable. You wouldn't want to be a burden on the family, would you?" That moment crystallized everything about their manipulation. They had convinced themselves that murdering me was an act of love, sparing me from prolonged aging while conveniently inheriting my wealth. The arrests happened the following Tuesday. Linda was taken into custody at her real estate office, David at his Sacramento home. Charges included attempted murder, elder abuse, financial fraud, and conspiracy. Local news covered the story extensively, shocking the community. The trial was emotionally exhausting. Linda's defense portrayed her as an overwhelmed daughter who made poor financial decisions but never intended harm. The evidence of systematic poisoning made this impossible to maintain. David claimed he was manipulated by Linda, never knowing about arsenic. Recorded conversations contradicted this defense. During testimony, I had to speak publicly about how my children tried to murder me. The courtroom filled with neighbors and friends who had known our family for years, struggling to reconcile the Linda and David they thought they knew with the criminals on trial. Linda was sentenced to 15 years for attempted murder and financial fraud. David received 12 years. The judge noted that elder abuse by family members represents one of the most serious breaches of trust in our society. Physical recovery from arsenic poisoning took months. With proper nutrition and elimination of poison, my energy returned, thinking cleared, and health issues I attributed to aging simply disappeared. The emotional recovery was more complex. I had to grieve not just for the children I thought I'd raised, but for relationships that would never be restored. Financial recovery was easier. Mr. Chen recovered most stolen money and canceled the fraudulent reverse mortgage. My financial security was restored. More importantly, I had to rebuild my understanding of family and trust. Jake, my grandson, became one positive outcome. At 16, he was old enough to understand what his mother had done but young enough to need support. Without his parents' interference, we developed genuine connection based on honesty rather than manipulation. 6 months after the trial, I sold the house on Maple Street. Every room reminded me of Linda's visits, David's calls, and months of being slowly poisoned. I moved to a smaller, modern home across town with no memories of deception. The new neighborhood had several active seniors, We formed an informal social group for coffee, walks, and local trips. These friendships were based on mutual interest and respect rather than obligation, making them feel more authentic. I began volunteering with the Senior Center's Financial Protection Program, educating older adults about warning signs of financial abuse and elder fraud. My story, while extreme, illustrates patterns that occur in many families. 2 years after the arrests, I can honestly say my life is better than before I discovered the truth. The authenticity of current relationships and clarity of priorities created peace I never had when being deceived and poisoned. I sleep better, knowing no one is slowly killing me. I eat without wondering about harmful substances. I make financial decisions based on my own interests, rather than trying to please children who were stealing from me. The relief of living without constant manipulation has been transformative. The grief for Linda and David is complicated and ongoing. I mourn for the children I thought they were, for relationships I believed we had. At the same time, I feel grateful I discovered the truth before their plans succeeded. I've learned that family loyalty shouldn't require accepting abuse, fraud, or attempts on your life. Age doesn't make you disposable, and being someone's parent doesn't mean you owe them your life or wealth without question. Most importantly, I learned it's never too late to stand up for yourself and demand respect you deserve. At 73, I outsmarted two adults who thought they could manipulate and murder me. I gathered evidence, worked with law enforcement, and saw them brought to justice. Looking forward, I'm focused on building relationships and experiences that bring joy rather than stress. I'm learning to paint, traveling to places Thomas and I always planned to visit, reading books, and attending concerts based on my own interests, rather than what others thought I should enjoy. The attempted poisoning taught me you can survive almost anything if you stay alert, trust your instincts, and refuse to accept mistreatment just because it comes from people supposed to love you. My children's betrayal was devastating, but it also freed me from the burden of trying to please people who were fundamentally selfish and dishonest. Every morning when I wake up healthy and safe in my new home, I'm reminded that I chose to save my own life when the people who should have protected me chose to threaten it. The poison they fed me was meant to kill me slowly and quietly. Instead, it revealed their true nature and gave me motivation to build a better life than I had ever imagined possible.